After being interviewed by the school administration, the teaching prospect said, "Let me see if I've got this right. You want me to go into that room with all those kids, correct their disruptive behavior, observe them for signs of abuse, monitor their dress habits, censor their t-shirts, and instill in them a love for learning. Then you want me to check their backpacks for weapons, wage war on drugs and sexually transmitted diseases, raise their self-esteem and personal pride. You want me to teach them patriotism and good citizenship, sportsmanship and fair play, and how to register to vote, balance a checkbook, and apply for a job. Then you want me to check their heads for lice, recognize signs of antisocial behavior, and make sure that they all pass the state exam. And then you want me to provide them with an equal education, regardless of their handicaps, communicate regularly with their parents by letter, telephone, email, newsletter, and report card. And you want me to do this with a piece of chalk, a blackboard, a bulletin board, a few books, a big smile, and a starting salary that qualifies me for food stamps? Tell me again, you want me to do this for how much?
I just started the 3rd grade. My teachers mean a lot to me. I know that my future depends on the teachers I have in school. Did you know that in America, more than 3 million public school teachers go to work every day? The National Commission on Teaching in America's Future has calculated that nearly a third of all new teachers leave the profession just after 3 years. And after 5 years, almost half are gone. Why? America is facing a crisis. And I'm here to tell you that no teacher should be left behind. Let's start by taking a look at what teachers have to say.
Because it's hard work. I mean, you're dealing with so much.
Teachers are leaving the cities because of the overload of work that we have, the mandates that come from the district.
And the reason why we moved to North Carolina is, 1, because of our family, and 2, because the district where we were teaching was pretty difficult.
Many feel that they're underpaid here, that in New York City, unfortunately, it's grossly inadequate compared to the suburbs of Nassau and Westchester, Suffolk, and Rockland County, as well as New Jersey, certain areas.
If they have the books and materials and supplies they need, rather than go without desks. It's amazing. In our region, we have teachers without enough desks, without any textbooks, or without textbooks they can check out to kids, with libraries that might shut down before the school year's out because they have to count the books.
I know so many teachers who've complained about, saying that their students have problems and they come to us as their teachers, and we're trying to teach them math or literacy and implement a curriculum, and the students come to us with their other problems, social problems, family problems, fathers in jail, absent parents, family members dying of AIDS, all of these issues that affect their lives, and they have no outlet for them, and it makes it very difficult for them to function.
I think that teachers leave sometimes because they get disappointed.
Teachers, particularly in the inner cities, often feel very undersupported. There's not enough resources.
They're not getting the support that they should be getting from either administration or the board itself.
I felt sometimes as if I was dealing with some resistance even.
In New York, you can start teaching with a BA. Within 5 years, you have to have a master's degree. So we're talking about, people who have, at least 6 years of college behind them.
The more that teachers can talk about what they've been struggling with is big. The more that teachers feel like they're also supported amongst themselves, not only by the administration, but that they should feel support amongst themselves is key to having a school that's healthy, that there's a nice tone in the school, that there's this love of learning and all of that.
And the support that we give our early career educators, particularly in those first 3 years, determines whether they're going to stay to become those experienced veteran, professional, national board, and the next generation of leaders.
And I think one of the reasons people leave the profession, I know it could be a number of things, but if they don't feel they're treated as professionals, if they feel they're just cogs in a machine, they're not really allowed to be creative, they're not being given a lot of the support, the supplies, the training that they need to be effective. But mostly, I think people leave the profession when they feel they're not being paid, a wage that allows them to do work that they most likely love, but to support their families.
The new teachers are placed. They're given their own classroom rather than a cart to float around. That they're given a mix and a range of young people so they can see some success in the day and also not just be tainted by having only the upper classes.
We need more classrooms, more spaces. This building does not have a music room. They do not have a library. They do not have a gym. On days that it's cold outside, there's no place for them to go for a recess. As some of the teachers have said, they have very little support staff. No school counselors, no psychologists on staff. All of those things are needed, especially in these poverty areas where there's so many challenges facing the children.
I think we need a lot of respect in general. I don't think the teaching profession is respected. It's almost as if, okay, well, you're going to do this job and you do it, and you do it the best way you can.
I tell all of the staff members here that if you're not a regular classroom teacher, then you're a support to those classroom teachers. That means the administrators, the librarian, the school counselor, the cafeteria staff, the custodians, anyone who's not a regular classroom teacher. Your main goal is to support those regular classroom teachers because they're the ones that are in those classrooms every day, day in and day out, doing the most difficult job, I believe, on this planet.
They get thrown into a classroom with 30 plus students. They don't really have the support that they need or want. They basically, they're left alone.
The last school I was in had 5 principals in 1 year. And that is an example of the instability that occurs in schools that are in high-need schools.
Being a first-year teacher, you definitely see the highs and lows of the job.
We have a huge teacher turnover. We're replacing at least 20 teachers a year in many of the schools. We're getting new teachers in who are brand new teachers.
But we have to bring everyone together to know that we've got to be there to support each other. So it begins with that foundational, that paradigm belief and understanding that we're all here as a community, a learning community, to support one another.
In the schools where the principal is not authoritarian, where they give the teacher a new classroom and the resources needed, whether they have the support, the mentor, the materials, and an ear to listen to, those teachers are seemingly doing okay.
For instance, a teacher's having a really tough time, has a really tough class. This particular week she's not looking as peppy and as excited as she typically is. Have that conversation. Find 5 minutes to have that conversation with that teacher to say, how can I help you?
My salary never covered the intensity and the feeling and the caring and the time that I put into my profession. And I think that one of the problems is that, people look at teachers and they say the word dedicated and expect them to just give more of their time because they know they're those kinds of people.
If your heart is in the place where it says, I want to work with kids and I want to make the lives of children better, then this is definitely the occupation you want to go into. But come into it knowing that it's not an easy ride. It's a tough job with lots of small payoffs all along the way.
We want people to stay in the profession. We want them to be successful, to be able to support their families, to be able to live in the districts that they teach in, and higher salaries are part of that. And the unions have been at the forefront of negotiating those higher salaries to make teaching a really attractive profession.
Children come in with all types of wonderful things, positive things. I wish I'd started a journal when I first was teaching. The funny things that happen every day, the sorrowful things, the inspiring things. However, as much as there are those wonderful times, the reality is that you're dealing with children who have a lot of problems, family problems, and a lot of things to overcome.
In terms of the neighborhood, there are some challenges in the neighborhood. This is New York City, there is crime.
Our kids are wonderful, but that doesn't take away from the things that they may have to deal with on an everyday basis where other children in other schools may not be accustomed to. We have children who come in and they may not have eaten last night. They did not have a meal last night. We have children who come in who are traumatized because their house was raided or their older brother was shot or killed or and things like that. There's a lot that is happening in this neighborhood that really, really affects the children, and it affects them every day in the school. And some of our children are crack babies that were addicted. Their parents were addicted to alcohol when they were in the womb and conceived. So they have a lot of different issues that when they come into school, they are delayed. And there are things that we need to do for them besides putting them into special education. We want to make sure that they have a really equal chance of surviving and striving in school.
I grew up in this neighborhood in Spanish Harlem, and I always wanted to give back to my community. The biggest reward for me as a teacher are the children. That is why I became a teacher.
Well, I think that oftentimes with teachers who have not had much experience relating with children from inner city environments, is that they primarily go by what they may read in the newspapers or what they hear about other people saying, but there's very little of a direct interaction, and because of that, there seems to be a failure, an inability even, for them to really connect with these children on a cultural, if not human, scale.
Because of that, not recognizing the student, what they may have to bring to the relationship of teacher-student, because the teachers and the administrators don't understand where the population is and what the students' lives are like, it's very hard for them to relate.
The kids call it getting into the world. Well, for example, when I came back one Monday morning working with the high school kids, I listened to rap music all weekend, and I quickly found out that was not one of my favorite types of music, but I knew the kids, that was a conversation they had often in my classroom. So I started my lesson by saying, this story, this genre is very similar to the rap artist and named Puff Daddy or whoever was popular at the time. And immediately the room was silent. You could have heard a pin drop when they turned and said, you listen to that stuff? And I told them all the time.
No Child Left Behind. That's a pact where they have not really put enough money into it.
I'm not too crazy about the idea of No Child Left Behind.
If our schools in the Bronx do not, meet the mark in the testing, our funding gets cut based on No Child Left Behind.
Promises, promises, broken promises. Teachers were promised a bonus in pay if their students met the benchmarks of adequate yearly progress under No Child Left Behind. Teachers who succeeded were then told that their pay bonus would be cut. In North Carolina, teachers were upset. For the 2007-2008 school year, staff received $1,053 if their school students showed high growth, not the $1,500 they expected. No wonder teachers are leaving. How do you expect them to stay when you promise to pay them and don't? A broken promise causes frustration and disappointment.
There's a misperception in the public's mind and in leadership that the troubles with education and the problems that we have are due to teachers, and that is pervasive. And I don't know when that started, but I do read about it, and I'm quite concerned that there is this misconception that teachers are the reason that children struggle and that we don't care, and that really troubles me.
We have school districts like New Rochelle that's urban, suburban, with some very affluent areas, but also some not so affluent areas.
I think the most hurtful thing that happened to me as a teacher was an experience with a parent interview, a parent conference, and the child had been rude and disruptive in the class, and I finally called in a parent meeting. And the parent's reaction to me as a woman of color, I think it kind of shocked me. I guess I'd gotten into a comfort zone where I didn't realize that these things could happen again. And the parent's reaction to that was, that surprises me because she's always so nice to our help. And that took me back, and it made me realize that we have not come really that far.
Well, in Scarsdale, the parents were very involved with the education of the students. Again, you have an educated population of parents who are going to be involved with the students, and that's great, and support their children in every way possible. Also, within the school itself, there's smaller classes. There's less of an expectation. The teachers, I believe, have more autonomy in a school district like Scarsdale to create the curriculum and implement the curriculum and some of their ideas. Much of what we do in the Bronx is dictated to us from the district.
They need to be able to work together. They need to be involved in decision making in their school, not being told what to do all the time. And they need to be respected for the knowledge that they do have.
And certainly not to lower the bar, but my kids, for example, I teach ESL, And within 3 years, a child who may have come from Bangladesh and never had any formal education, cannot even read and write in native language, will come to me in middle school and be expected within 3 years to pass the same test as a child from the suburbs who's had every advantage from the beginning.
You know, we're asking the kids to attempt so much, and we're asking them to go out on a limb. Well, so are teachers.
I think it's hard for them. I know right away when they come in, if they have a problem speaking English, they feel at ease to know I go right away into the Spanish. So they feel more at ease that I can relate with them, that I could speak to them. And because we have similarities in our backgrounds in many ways, I right away tell them I grew up this way. I understand what it is not to have food. I understand. So right away we're trying to connect in certain ways.
Presently, our school is located on the 3rd floor. We have about 500 students. The majority of our students are Hispanic students.
I love the fact that I am working in a school where 80% of the school population is Latino.
We have about 9% that are African American, and we have 1% that are other. We have a few Chinese students that are in the school presently.
I think it's definitely a model for schools which service this population.
Presently a teacher of a 6th grade class at BBMS, bilingual bicultural mini school, and I've been teaching here for 15 years now.
I grew up in this neighborhood, and so did many of the teachers. And the one thing that I have to say about the school is that I would say that 80% of the teachers have been able to connect with the children due to their cultures and their backgrounds. The fact that we can relate to them in their language, you know, being that we're all Latinos. Most of us, anyway, I would say 80% of us in the school are Latinos.
I came from Ecuador at 9 years of age. I came to a Catholic school. I remember not understanding and praying every night that I could understand it and be able to do my work. And I think I have sensitized myself to that. So when children come over, sometimes I think I'm too soft on them and understanding, because I know how hard it is for them to just get used to a totally different culture. And it's such a culture shock to come from one's country to here. Not only the language, but everything. Everything is so different. So I think that's one of the reasons I relate to these children.
And they've come to me and they say, "Can I say this in Spanish?" And I'm like, "Sure, why not?" You know, definitely.
I have been at BBMS for 15 years. My whole teaching career has been at this school.
This is a school that for 30 years has been successful with a very high at-risk population. Most of our children are Latino. Many are English language learners. We compare to the schools, similar schools, we do very well.
You know, I'll have to be honest in this aspect. I come from England, and my very first year teaching, I was a bit taken aback by the notion of such trauma in the family. And I was taken aback but enlightened at the same time, knowing that we all come from different backgrounds. And I just felt really comfortable that a child would be able to look at me and be able to share anything and everything that's happening in their home environment as well as their school environment.
We have a fabulous staff here, and we don't take it for granted. We know it.
They're basically the first ones to give when we need certain things.
I feel like, you know, England was a whole separate, different life, and where I am now in the community that I'm in, I need to know that I need to be passionate.
They know children well, they know parents well, they know their community well, and they need to be acknowledged for that and asked for their input into decisions when they're being made. Frequently, as soon as people think there's something wrong, they start with that top-down thing. Do this, do that, say this, be this, and teachers have no say in what's going on.
it really is united decision making at the school.
That we're able to celebrate so many languages and so many cultures within the school. I think it's an experience that every teacher should have.
I didn't think I wanted to be a teacher. One of my friends said, well, why don't you become a teacher? I said, no, I don't have the patience for this. And she said, I'm joining this wonderful program at Hunter College. She said, it's training tomorrow's teachers. And I said, really? She goes, yeah, try it out. And having that early field experience took care of all my anxieties. Okay, because I knew I had my professor to rely on, and I had the classroom teacher, you know, if I had any questions, to support me. Every semester, we taught with a different teacher, with a different group of students.
Most of our teachers go on. Our salary structure is such that you increase your salary not only as you stay, there's the longevity, but also as you increase your education. We have an MA, you can earn MA 30 credits over an MA, a master's degree, 60 credits over a master's, and in the newest contract that we're negotiating right now, there will be a master's plus 90.
I have always felt that the best time to negotiate a contract is the last week in August when parents are home alone with their kids, pulling their hair out, and will give a teacher anything to take them off their hands. But teachers don't see it that way. Teachers see these children as important, and they care for them, and they want the best. They become their own children. They become the parents of all the children that they teach.
Teachers come to the profession with the highest ideals. They really want to change the lives of children. They want the best for everybody. They love children and want to do the best for them.
My children have been some of the smartest, some of the funniest people that you'd ever meet.
I love the school, and I love the community, and I love the kids.
When I came to BBMS, there was no music program. They had a broken piano in one of the classrooms.
And so, for myself, I remember growing up in the hood and having very few male role models and people to look up to.
I started thinking I could get some recorders. Could get a hold of some recorders. Those are pretty cheap.
And so, for me, it was very valuable to see someone who looked like me, who was into something, someone who was getting an education or making something out of his life.
At $5 a piece, we could get a little recorder choir going, and that's what I started on. It was pretty rough going.
Being a member of hip-hop's first generation, I remember a time when hip-hop was a very innocent culture that was teeming with life and hope, and it was really on the cutting edge, and it presented something that was completely, unprecedented, because, what was it, in the early 70s, the public education music budget was slashed considerably by Richard Nixon. And so because of this, children of color in inner cities really didn't have much of a music curriculum. So what they often did was they created music out of nothing, even if it meant banging on garbage cans or, rapping and coming up with all these really interesting ways of expressing themselves.
They love it. I have a waiting list every year for people to join our orchestra, our percussion ensemble. I have so many drummers that I have to have a percussion ensemble, or our choir, which is also a /acting department because we do lots of plays.
I'm now at my dream school in Wilmington, North Carolina.
And we just moved from Albany, New York to Wilmington, North Carolina. And I love it. I left New York making $50,000, and coming down to Wilmington, I thought it wouldn't be so bad of a jump because the cost of living is a lot cheaper. But the cost of living isn't cheaper, and
Everything's
there's
gone up.
$13,000 difference coming down in Wilmington.
Salaries are competitive, and in New York State, we're proud to say, I think, that our salaries rank among the highest for teachers.
People with master's degrees and double master's degrees.
And they should. You know, teachers work hard.
And I think a teacher here in New York City should earn a salary that would allow us to have a quality of life living within the city, which is expensive. It's very expensive, and teachers do not earn that kind of money. I know it's not a bottomless pit, but we certainly are not compensated, whereas people in the city at high levels are, I will often hear of the mayor giving commissioners and deputies increases in salary.
I also looked for a house in Wilmington, and houses are not cheap. Wilmington, I believe, from what I hear, is the second highest city to live in North Carolina, which makes it hard for a teacher to buy a house, especially a first-year teacher.
The gas is going up, food prices are going up each and every day. Things are just getting worse. I'm a custodian. I have a choice. I can either eat or drive.
I was not able to find a house within my budget this year, so I'm continuing to rent. I probably have $200 to save or so.
Yeah, every other state in the United States allows at least some of their public employees to collectively bargain with their employer.
We're part of a larger union movement, if you will, New York State United Teachers, which is a statewide organization of which we are a local, has about 500,000 members. That includes retirees, and that includes teachers throughout New York State, including the largest local, which would be the United Federation of Teachers, which is a New York City Teachers Union. They have about 130,000 members.
The problem with not having a strong union and collective bargaining is the inconsistency from school to school. Policy decisions are left to the discretion of the school principal without contractual guarantees.
One of the reasons that we're trying to do this in North Carolina is that it's such an unfair circumstance for our public employees that they don't share this right. Virtually every other employee in the United States, certainly all those in the private sector, and those in the public sector in most other states, have this right. So it's really kind of a human rights or employee rights issue for North Carolina public employees.
For example, when we missed several days because of hurricanes, some teachers were required to come in on Saturdays to make up those days. While in other schools, principals allowed the teachers to use the hours they spent after school towards those make-up days. This caused a feeling of resentment among teachers.
And it really goes beyond the United States, because one of our HOPE members filed a grievance with the International Labor Organization, which is an agency of the United Nations, over North Carolina's law that prohibits public employee collective bargaining. And that body, the International Labor Organization, ruled that North Carolina's law, in fact, is a violation of international labor standards and human rights standards.
Our union has negotiated on behalf of our teachers prep periods in every day. So teachers have a chance during the day to make phone calls to parents, to make copies of tests or exams, to prepare lessons, to prepare manipulatives for interactive lessons with their children. It's not just a given that teachers get a free period, it's part of our contract. And it's an important part of our contract.
But in North Carolina, that's not the case. 1959, North Carolina passed a law in reaction to an attempt by the Teamsters Union to organize the police in Charlotte, North Carolina. At that time, as you may recall, there was a lot of Red Scare. This was during the Cold War, and unions were thought of as being an expression, by some people, being an expression of communism.
One of the things we don't want to have happen is what happens in New York City, which has a strong union, but its salaries lag behind ours, and they lose teachers every year, some really good teachers. I know that because they lose them to us, and we recruit them, and they're able to do the same good work they were doing in the city, but at a wage that enables them to really support a family.
One year when I was vice president of Teachers Association where I was teaching, we were having a lot of difficulty with negotiations. We really wanted and deserved an increase in salary, plus a few other things, and we were making no headway. But because we were teachers, we did not want to break the contract, and we didn't want to strike. So together we put a plan together where we would, in order to prove a point, we would only go into school at 8:15 and leave at 3:15. We didn't come in early to get ready, and we didn't stay late to mark papers and help the children that needed extra help or to run the school play for nothing. We just left the building quietly with no commotion, marked no papers at home, corrected no tests at home, did not work during our lunch hour. It was hard. It was very hard to do. And then the administration realized that it was coming up close to report card time. And when were we going to do our report cards if we didn't do them at home? When the administration realized we'd have no report cards ready, they sat us down very quickly, and guess what? In 3 hours, we had a contract, and everybody was happy.
And that's important to us. We want to be able, we want teachers to be able to make a living at teaching, so they're not working 2 or 3 other jobs, so they can focus on their primary responsibility, which is to provide instruction to the children that they teach.
This law has been on the books now for 58 years, and in that time, many other states, in fact, have passed laws allowing their employees to collectively bargain and even setting up the procedure for collective bargaining in their states for public employees. In those states, it's clear now that the employees who have collective bargaining actually have better pay and better benefits and better working conditions than employees in states like North Carolina where there is no collective bargaining.
Working conditions.
You just don't get any time for anything here. Yeah. And if an assistant is not there in the lunchroom, who's supposed to be watching your table, I have to go down and sit and eat lunch with my class. Not to mention, I haven't used the bathroom all day. Not to mention,
maybe art was canceled that day.
Art was canceled that day, and they don't get a sub for it.
In the elementary school, the union has worked hard to make sure that teachers get a period, one period a day where they can, we call it our preparation period, the prep period, where they can work on educational things, grading homeworks and things like that. The union wants to protect the teachers' rights and making sure that they have those prep. In addition to that prep, they get one period a week, which is called professional activity. And the teacher in elementary schools have a duty-free lunch of 60 minutes, which is a nice block of time. It enables the teachers to catch their breath, have some lunch, maybe even run out. I know on Fridays is a big day. As a union president, I never go to any of the elementary schools on Friday to drop off circular letters or newsletters, because on Fridays a lot of people go out to lunch. It's a nice way to socialize with your colleagues. So there's an hour duty-free lunch, which means you're off. You
you want to close your classroom door and eat quietly, you can. If you want to go to the cafeteria and eat with your colleagues, if you want to go off campus, some teachers run home. If they live in the neighborhood, they'll run home and just feed the cat or something. But you have an hour that's yours, and it's a nice break, and it's, as any teacher will tell you, it's a needed break in the middle of the day.
A lot of teachers, after school, they're still here. A lot of teachers, when they go home, they're still working. Most people, when they leave their job, they just get up in the morning and they go back to work. But for a teacher, their job is never really done. You have grading papers, you have phone calls to make and things like that. The union wants to make sure that each teacher has that prep period, whether it's unassigned and also a duty-free lunch.
I started teaching a long time ago, and primarily because I was a woman that had three choices. I could be a teacher, I could be a secretary, or I could be a nurse. I didn't go into this because of dedication and because I love children. That grew as I grew in my profession. And the bulk of my career, 25 of my 30 years, I spent in an inner city school where the children were very needy and where teachers left the building every night at 5 o'clock, went home, worked until they went to bed, came back early the next morning. We had breakfast and lunch and snacks after school with the children. And we became, I guess, their lifeline.
Again, it's professional activity that needs to take place, but won't take place, I think, unless the union negotiates it with the district.
In researching and comparing and contrasting public school teacher salary schedules across the board, we contacted the Scarsdale Public School District in Westchester County, New York, and we were told the following.
Hello, I'm calling from the Scarsdale School District in Westchester County, New York. Jean Hall left a message on my phone mail last night just to let her know that we do not post teaching and salary schedules on our website. And I really don't know of any district that does. You'd have to call each individual district and ask for their personnel office and find out that information from them. These are contractual things, and we do not post a contract on our website. Good luck.
Actually, we had a great deal of luck in finding the teacher salary schedule on the Human Resources website of every district that we researched. This is on public record for teachers as well as for the taxpayers whose dollars pay the teachers' salaries. We finally obtained the Scarsdale data from a teacher who is currently employed in the Scarsdale schools. The base pay annual teacher salary for 2008 and 2009. Bachelor's degree, no prior teaching experience in Wilmington, $30,430. New York City, $45,530. And Scarsdale, $52,652. With a master's degree, no prior teaching experience. In Wilmington, $33,470. New York City, $51,425. And in Scarsdale, $58,971. With a master's degree and 8 years teaching experience, Wilmington comes in at $42,010. New York City at $74,796. And Scarsdale at $86,350. And top of the scale, maximum in Wilmington, $57,810. New York City, $100,049. And in Scarsdale, $127,945.
Teachers in our high school, in our secondary schools, teach 5 periods a day. That's 5 separate classes. Some of our science teachers may teach a 6th period on a given day because they're lab. But for the most part, the 5-period day it enables teachers to see about 110, 120 kids a day, which is still very high load, but enables them also to have a couple of periods, one for prep, one for lunch, and another what we call a non-teaching duty period, where they can meet kids in small groups and provide additional support and instruction, where they can meet with their other colleagues. A lot of times they use that time to meet with special education teachers whose children have been mainstreamed into their classroom.
When you're in the classroom with 25 children and you're the only one in there, I don't get help. In New York, being from a union, I got help. I had an assistant.
The union provided that. It wasn't just our younger members sometimes think this is all the beneficence of the district. It wasn't. It was collective bargaining that got those rights for our members, and it's important.
There was somebody in my room all the time.
Since we don't have unions in North Carolina,
I've worked in both union and non-union states, and I can see the pros and cons of each. For example, in non-union states, there isn't a limit to the number of meetings that can be called. And this can be very productive because we get a lot accomplished, a lot of good things accomplished for the children. However, there are times when too many meetings are called. And I've seen teachers at other schools become fatigued and burned out.
The first bell rings at 8 o'clock, but the students come into the classroom at 7:25, which means my job starts supervising children at 7:25.
typical day starts at 7:25, and the students get off the bus, come directly to the classroom. Some stay here, and some go directly to breakfast.
If you're talking about a male teacher, and you're not talking about a science teacher or a math teacher or a special ed teacher, if you're talking about a physical ed teacher, if you're talking about a social studies teacher, you're talking about an English teacher, even foreign language, then you're going to talk about somebody that's going to be a coach, especially at a rural school. They really, at times, just need a warm body put in a position as a coach. So a lot of times when you're hired, your job is listed as teacher/coach.
One example is one of our graduates from this May was just offered a job in one of our rural counties. In about ready to sign that contract, this candidate noticed that on the bottom it said, failure to accept an extracurricular responsibility will lead to termination of this contract. And not only do I question the legality of that, although perhaps it is, just the morality of asking a first-year teacher, requiring of a new teacher to take on coaching or extracurricular responsibilities. What if they need a semester or a year to get their feet under them? What if we ask them, and for some I know it's a good thing, but for many, giving them a year to become established, to refine their curriculum, just to get less stressed would be a good thing. So putting that as a restriction in their contract, I think, is a sign of how far we have not come.
Once games began, I was told that in order to be paid as a coach, I needed to obtain my certified driver's license so I could drive the bus for the players. So I did that. I received the training and I took the test and I became a bus driver. So we, as the head coach, had to drive to all the games. We had distances as far as 120 miles away. Our goal was to play the best teams in the state, and that's what it took. We had to drive a couple hours. As you know, a school bus will only go between 45 and 50 miles an hour, so you can imagine driving on the highway. It took a few hours to get there. So if a game started at 5 o'clock and it was a couple hours away, I would need to first obtain a sub for my classroom as a half day, leave, go get the bus, which was at a separate terminal, drive the bus to the high school, make sure all the players had everything, and this is a JV team, so we had 13 to 15-year-olds on our team who were slightly responsible, so I had to get them all ready on the school bus, and we would drive to whatever our destination was, get our uniforms on, go through warm-ups, coach the game, and then drive all the players back. Players were not allowed to drive back with their parents. It was a rule of our school. So again, a normal day might be I started work at 7 o'clock in the morning as an elementary teacher, taught all day, drove the school bus, coached a game, and would usually return between 9 and 10 o'clock at night. We would be paid for driving the bus. and we filled out a slip at the end of the year with all of our travel time. We weren't paid by mileage or by hours. We had a straight supplement that if our team played within our county, we received $10 of pay. If our team played outside of the county, whether it was the county next to us or 5 counties away, we were paid $30. And all supplements in the state of North Carolina are taxed at approximately 44 to 46%.
In my case, the question was asked, how much do you know about football? And I told the fellow that hired me, I said, I know a little bit. I said, I played in the 9th grade. It was good enough. So he put me in an assistant's position. Here's exactly what they had me to do. I would come in the morning at 7:30. I'd go to work. I would teach to 3:30. At 3:30, I'd get ready for football practice. Then I would go out with the guys, and we would practice football till about 7:30 at night. Now, on a Friday night or game night, you do the same thing with the exception of you get to work at about 7:30, and if it's an away game, you might get home at about 1:30 a.m.
For our sports teams in North Carolina, our coaches and trainers who work long hours after school and on weekends are paid almost nothing.
When I started to coach, I wasn't really told about, salaries or how anything worked. Baseball practice started every day at 3:30. The field maintenance supplement, which I learned was about $100 a season. So if you can imagine taking care of your normal lawn, just imagine a full baseball field and getting $100 for about 6 months of work, which again was taxed 46%, like all of our supplements were.
With the after-school program, the union is making sure that teachers are paid. We're paid per session.
In New York City, because of the union, teachers are paid an extra $41.98 an hour for working after school. In North Carolina, with no union helping, teachers are paid $10.43 an hour. Sometimes.
We probably made 50 cents an hour, after everything is done.
I think if I was paid more, I would stay as a teacher. I enjoy teaching. I enjoy developing the relationship with the students, and I would like to continue that. There's not a big jump from first-year teacher salary to fifth-year teacher salary.
My daily schedule is relentless. There is very little time to plan.
And then you go home, you have to work another job, and the other job you may be working till 10 o'clock at night just to pay the bills because the salary is so low here.
When I moved to Wilmington in 1994 with a master's degree plus almost 30 credits and 5 years teaching experience, my salary was $23,000. I've been shocked to see how many teachers have to hold a second job just to make ends meet.
Because of my salary, I've started to work at 2 other jobs. On Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, I work after school, and then on weekends, I work at another job.
Boy who failed last year. I mean, if you look at his report card, there were a lot of F's on there, and he has made honor roll 3 out of 4, A honor roll. And he at the award ceremony, he got principal's award, he got Accelerated Reader Award. He got Top Science Award. He got the MVP of Choices Award. And he has just soared. And I really think all he needed was a little bit of love and support at school.
My most infamous story is probably my first day story when I taught at a high school, and I had all my prior experience in elementary school and a small bit in middle school. And here I walk into a high school classroom. I had my room all set up with a bulletin board. We're buzzing back to school, and I'm so glad to be here, which I thought was really important. But somehow these 17 young men didn't seem to think it was that important.
I spent the summer putting together choices, giving the group a name and a mission and some structure, and I did a lot of research about things that work for at-risk students.
And in they came with dreadlocks, and the box haircuts were popular, so it made them look even taller, the saggy pants, and not at all what I anticipated.
So choices stands for compassion, humility, openness, integrity, confidence, education, and self-respect.
I could tell that it was going to take a very special teacher to reach these students. And I thought somehow from this little classroom I was assigned to, I was single-handedly going to change the world.
And it's for young men. This year we had all minority 7th and 8th grade boys, 1 6th grade boy.
And I was writing my name on the board because that's something teachers do. And the front door opened with a bang, and there was a young man standing there named Derek. And I could tell he possessed some power over the students, power I was going to have to earn a respect if I was going to ever make a difference in the lives of these students, build a relationship.
We meet 4 times a week, Monday through Thursday after school. We meet a lot outside of school and had a lot of field trips and other experiences together.
And he dropped his book bag on the floor and asked me, "You're the new teacher?" And I said, "Yes," in my best teacher voice, and I'm so very glad to meet you. And he asked me, "You want a little bit of advice?" And I was thinking I could use some of that right about now. And he said, "Don't ever get in my face. Don't expect me to read, and don't call on me, and we'll be all right. If you do, we'll have us a real problem." Well, although I'd been taught many wonderful strategies in student teaching and through my college experience, I really wasn't quite prepared for this. But I knew right away it was going to be the relationship piece that was either going to save me or sink me. So I began to try to get into his world, is what he said. Listen to some of the music he liked. Learn about what his world was like. Drive through his community. And 4 years later, that child was the first child to graduate in his family with a high school diploma. Graduation night, they asked to look out into the crowd and look at your parents and say thank you. But his eyes immediately met mine, and his lips were quivering, and a tear rolled down his cheek. And, of course, they were rolling down mine, and he simply said thank you across the crowd. And I truly believe it was because I built a solid relationship with that student.
It's a combination of discussion and reading, and also tutoring and academic support, recreation. They play ball once a week with some male mentors that come every Thursday. We do homework and tutoring, and we have visitors from the community. We've also gone out into the community, and we visited a local restaurant where the boys cooked a gourmet meal and learned about etiquette and the restaurant industry. We went to a local surf shop and they learned about running a business. We went to Career and Sports Day with the Charlotte Bobcats, where the boys got to explore careers outside of being professional athletes, but still within the area of sports. We worked with the local Don Osterbo, who does experiential learning through the county, and did some goal-setting activities, and which culminated with a climbing wall at UNCW and a tour of the campus and the School of Education.
The other is one that I'm currently running, and that's called SCORE, which stands for Students Collaborating on Reaching Excellence. This is specifically designed for Latino and African American students for math enrichment. And that, again, has been very helpful in getting students placed in the advanced placement courses.
Next week, we're going to Washington, D.C. as a group. This summer, the boys are out of school, and their second week of summer vacation will be in D.C. with us. And we have an awesome itinerary planned. We're going to the Smithsonian museums, we're touring the monuments, we're touring Howard University, we're going to a play at the Kennedy Center, and most of the boys have not ever been to DC, so it's going to be fun and educational and new experience for them.
We did considerable research prior to making the proposal, and what we found is that after the 3rd grade is when they really start declining, and particularly once they get to the 6th grade. They have the aptitude, but they don't have the encouragement perhaps, the motivation, whatever, and they start declining over a period of time. So our idea was to pick the students up as 6th graders, to also engage the parents in part of the process. So we have parent meetings, we have psychologists come in and speak to the parents about engaging children in activities that will enrich them. We have after-school program where teachers work with them on math investigations. And we have trips. We've gone off to the colleges, and students have talked to math majors at the colleges. So it's just to get them to realize that they have an ability and aptitude and that they can compete in the classroom. The results have been remarkable because teachers report that they have more confidence in the classroom. They'll raise their hand more. They feel stronger about their ability to do math.
The most amazing thing about the program and about these boys who are awesome is they're a team and they function as a team, and it's a big support system for some kids that might not otherwise have a ton of support. So they are my absolute favorite part of my day, my job. It's been up and down and all around, and it's always 2 steps forward and 1 step back.
We based it on Yuri Treisman out of Berkeley, who found that collaboration is the key to achievement in mathematics. And he attributes the success of Asian students to that because they work together, they play together. Our children tend to play together, and then they go home and do work independent of each other. And this is not conducive to their achieving because they can make their own mistakes and they don't benefit from the knowledge of other people.
I believe very firmly that we have to empower teachers, that teachers have to know that their opinions and their thoughts and their ideas count for something. It doesn't mean that every time a teacher has an idea, you go off on that tangent. It means that you bring those thoughts and ideas and feelings to the table, to the staff. You work collaboratively to discuss those ideas and decide as a group what's best for your school. Ultimately, of course, an administrator has to make the final decisions. We are ultimately the accountable person in our buildings. However, teachers have to know that their opinions count as well. And so I believe that one of the most basic foundational things to pulling together a good staff of educators and staff members is to make sure that everyone knows that they have a stake and a say-so and some ownership in what happens in your building.
Just as public school teachers and administrators are criticized for not serving all children, the rules changed on us. They changed on us with No Child Left Behind. They changed on us morally and ethically.
You're doing a lot of things right because I really felt prepared when I left here. I had a strong background in curriculum, but I don't think anyone can ever adequately prepare a teacher for the diversity in today's classrooms.
So another one of my boys, the first day we interviewed and accepted these kids into this program, and the first day we met, this boy one of the boys, he had his hands on the blinds, and my partner Chrissy said, don't mess with those or something, and he turned around like, why are you talking to me? You know, just anger. I mean, this kid was angry.
I kind of think of teaching, first of all, is built on relationships. I think that's the key.
When the rules changed on teacher education as well, and I think it's taken us longer to catch up. And that is, we have to prepare our graduates to serve all children, all families, not just the ones that do their work anyway, or appear to be doing their work, or from stereotypes appear to be the children who will go on, whatever that means, on to middle school, on to high school, on to college. We have to have a different mindset. And I'm not sure the curriculum in teacher education has adjusted accordingly.
He has reasons to be angry because of the things that he's endured in his life.
And for the kids who live in poverty, they come in here so ready to fight everybody. And we have all this research out there that shows that kids who grow up in violent and anger homes, you know, if another child bumps into them, their first assumption is that they did it on purpose. I have to teach these kids that some things in life are an accident. That concept to them is almost unbelievable to them. In fact, many of them don't believe it. They believe that whenever they're bumped into, it was on purpose, and that is somebody's basically trying to start a fight with them. Now, if a child has got that sort of energy and attitude in their head, how can they learn cooperatively with another human being or with another student? Because if the brain isn't open and the brain doesn't feel safe and warm and excited, it's not going to learn. This is what I tell my kindergartners. I say, we have to all be really, really friendly to each other in this classroom. Because when your brain is scared or feels like the person next to you doesn't like you, or if somebody looks at you and gives you a real creepy face, you know what the brain does? The brain just runs away and hides. It has a bed, it pulls the covers over, and it does not come out. But if somebody is nice to you and smiles at you and says, wow, I really like that picture you drew, you know what the brain does? The brain gets up out of bed, opens the door, and says, wow, I feel good, I feel safe, I want to learn.
And this boy, to watch him over the year soften, open up, access sides of himself that I don't even think I think he knew existed but was afraid to unleash. He's incredibly intelligent, way more intelligent than he lets on. He got moved into I got him switched into a predominantly academically gifted group in there. His English teacher has nothing but amazing things to say about what he did in that class.
This student came to this school after moving several times, and he definitely was lost. A lot of teachers before at his old schools passed him over, and we really took him in here and really got to know who he actually was. The things that he has achieved this year, I couldn't even write it down on paper, and you can't see it on paper. He's grown as an individual, and that's what really makes me feel as though teaching is a good profession.
In so many different areas, try to keep a pulse on what's going on in your building. And if you've got a large building, that's a difficult thing to do. And so you empower others, whether it's your assistant principal, your guidance counselor, others, to help give you the sense of what's happening in the pulse in your building. But that is an important part of what's going on. It all begins with relationships, whether it's from the administration to the teachers to the students, or school to parents, to the community. It all boils back to relationships. And I think, in my opinion, one of the best and biggest pluses this school has going for it is that issue of relationships. We are very, very focused on building positive, mutually respectful relationships.
First of all, I try to find age-appropriate literature for the child. If it's a high school child that's a non-reader, you have to be very careful that what you select to teach him to read doesn't make, he already feels bad about himself, that you don't make it any worse. I have a hodgepodge of strategies. I typically go, oh, I like this part of this program and this part of this program and this part of this program. Because I think as teachers, we think the textbook or the program is the curriculum, and it's not. It's one of the tools. So as a teacher with lots of tools in her belt, I'll pull out this strategy. For example, I do a survey with students. What do you like? And this one child wrote, I like animal books, B-U-K-S, books. So I thought, okay, some phonetic things are working there. We'll go with that. So what did I use when I wanted to work with him with reading? Animal books. He loved to eat, so I selected a book with animals and cookies. So we used cookie dough to form the words. Then to bring in culture, I brought in fortune cookies. Well, he'd never seen a fortune cookie. Well, he said, these are the craziest cookies I've ever seen. When he opened up the cookies, inside the cookies were his sight words. I had taken tweezers, it took me a while, and pulled out the fortunes and put in the sight words. Well, he bought into that lesson, and now everywhere he goes, he said, there's one of my words, because it was meaningful. It wasn't another teacher going, over and over. While the phonetic stuff is important, I think it has to be mixed with, there's no one best way. It has to be what's best for that particular student. Sometimes phonics work. Sometimes you've been working with phonics for 5 years and the kids just don't make that connection. So you need to try something else. Try sight words. Try, a number of strategies. So there's no secret formula of I've found the secret to teach a child to read. It's based on the unique interest, abilities, and needs of the child, and a hodgepodge of all the things I've learned along the way.
We have to help teachers keep a balance on what No Child Left Behind means. What does it entail? What's it about? And what does that mean for us? What does that look like? Well, for us, certainly we're accountable to these test scores. We're accountable to the state government, and we're accountable to the federal government, and we're foremost accountable to our parents, that we are educating their children. What I tell my teachers is we have to maintain the balance and keep it in a good perspective, which says, yes, we're accountable to these things, and here's the curriculum that we have to teach. But we have to know and believe in our soul and in our hearts that if we're using best research-based practices and we're making connections with children and building on those relationships, then those test scores will happen. May not happen overnight, may take some in-depth intervention, may take some strategic planning, may take more than a semester or a year. But working together, if we work on those things and keep in mind that it's not just about those test scores, it's about doing the best teaching we can, the best instruction for each and every child as we differentiate for their needs, we're going to get there.
I'm lucky to be at a great school in Wilmington, where the teachers openly share ideas with each other, and the administrators support us in implementing best practices that make learning exciting and good for the children.
North Carolina teaching is great teaching. Great teaching. It is. They teach you great practices. Everyone said, why are you moving to North Carolina? Oh my goodness, they're so much slower down there. They have no idea how to teach a child. And I went back to my old school in December and I said, they are doing everything right in North Carolina. They are differentiating every child. I mean, they're trying to meet every need, but yet they're just not recognized for any of it. It's very good practice teaching down here.
But you're working a lot harder.
You're working a lot harder, which is good.
But
That's why we came here.
But you're not making the money to be down here, to stay down here.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, this is your third and final scene for the day. This is a scene that takes place in Carrboro, North Carolina. It is in front of the BP station across the street from Abbey Court on Jones Ferry Road. This is You People.
What the fuck are you still doing here, man? I tell you every day to get out off my gas station, man. You see on the corner every day.
Oh my gosh, today
what is it? What is this, liquor?
Man. I just bought that your spot.
You bought it across the street, though.
One of the things that I believe is unique about our theater is our persistence on allowing the students to work with the burning issues that live within their lives. Our process typically entails bringing different groups of students together through workshops. I am fortunate to have the world's greatest co-facilitation team, and in our workshops we generally start with lots of different body movement exercises, lots of journaling exercises, beginning to tap into the issues that really are important to us.
Okay, well, in my character, I'm also, you know, I felt kind of impressed by Cindy over here, who's this like college student, you know, she's Asian, she's affluent, she's only doing her laundry here once because her laundry machine broke, and I feel like I have to stand up for her, you know, kind of to look good, and so I thought that what she did was really, really courageous.
Students have, you know, the chance to speak their lived experiences with each other, and through those discussions we begin to see what the parallels are. Once we establish the commonalities and the parallels between our different stories, we begin to work a little bit more abstractly into storylines and scenes that may be actual, literal, lived, real experiences, or perhaps kind of an assimilation of different threads from many different students' lives. Essentially, I just think that we have to teach compassion. We're in a new age. We have new issues that we're being bombarded with every single day. Students have a more complex set of variables working against them than any generation has ever had. The messages from the media are, you know, teaching them every single day inefficient ways of what it is to be a man and what it is to be a woman, and we've got to give them opportunities to reclaim that. We've got to give them opportunities to feel a sense of pride and a sense of power in being a kind human being. It's pointless to focus on, you know, curriculum and content and standard courses of study when we've got people who are who've got completely broken down relationships with the person sitting next to them. I feel like our biggest moral imperative is to give students a safe space where they can come across lines of profound brokenness and extreme differences in order to be able to embrace each other.
Have a job that you love, that you can go to every day and really make a difference. And every day, like I said, is different. You know, you never know what funny thing some kid is going to say or what annoying thing some kid is going to say. But in the end, it's all good. It's a great career. And I'm very proud to be a teacher, and I'm very proud to be part of the Teachers Union.
Well, I'm asked that question a lot. First of all, I will say teaching is truly a calling. And if you're called and you don't answer the call, it will haunt you the rest of your life. That's why we have so many people entering our field as lateral entry teachers, because they were called and they decided either the money wasn't there, or that they really didn't think it would be that fun, or they didn't get, for whatever reason. And now they're coming back to the teaching field after working in business for 10 years because teaching is a calling. So my first advice would be, if you're being called, answer it. Second, know that it's a continual growth process. Day 1, you're not going to know all the answers. Year 30, you're not going to know all the answers. And if you think you do, I question that if you're really growing as a professional. So I would say, love the kids, love what you do, continue to grow, and whatever it takes, keep the passion alive, because kids are able to see straight through all the stuff and into our hearts. And if your heart is a teacher's heart, you can make the impossible possible.
Please don't leave the teachers behind, because when you leave them behind, you leave us behind.
Be kind with peace of mind, no teacher left behind. Be kind no teacher left behind. Never forget, never neglect. Teachers are hard to find. Put this in mind and never forget, no teacher left behind. Be kind to the teachers of our children. Be kind to the teachers of the world. Be kind to the teachers of our children. Be kind with peace of mind. Be kind with peace of mind. No teacher left behind. Be kind with peace of mind. No teacher left behind. No teacher left behind. No teacher left